The storm that night was merciless, the kind that erased roads and swallowed sound. Snow fell thick over the remote Idaho backcountry as Daniel Mercer drove toward the small cabin he used during short leaves from duty. The forest pressed in on both sides, dark and silent, broken only by the steady hum of his engine and the rhythmic sweep of windshield wipers fighting a losing battle. Daniel was 37, active-duty Navy SEAL, broad-shouldered and lean, his posture relaxed but alert even when alone. Leave never meant peace. It only meant fewer voices. He wasn't thinking about much when the sound reached him. Thin, broken, almost lost beneath the wind. Daniel eased off the accelerator before his mind fully registered why. The sound came again, 3 high-pitched cries, overlapping and uneven. Not mechanical, not wind, alive. His chest tightened as training took over. He slowed the truck to a crawl, scanning the tree line ahead. The cries were close now, desperate, cutting through the storm with fragile insistence. He pulled onto the shoulder and sat still for half a second, hands resting on the wheel. This was the moment before commitment, the fraction of time where turning away was still possible. Then he opened the door. Cold slammed into him like a physical force. Snow reached nearly to his calves as he stepped off the road, boots breaking through crusted ice with each careful step. The cries led him just beyond the trees, where the wind thinned and shadows deepened. That was where he saw them. 3 German Shepherd puppies, barely weeks old, huddled together in a shallow hollow. Their small bodies shook violently, fur stiff with ice, ribs faintly visible beneath soaked coats. When Daniel moved closer, all 3 lifted their heads at once and cried harder, dragging themselves toward him on unsteady legs. Behind them lay their mother. She was large, her frame powerful even now, but she barely moved. Blood had frozen dark against her flank, snow crusted into her fur. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, each breath an effort. Her eyes opened slowly, locking onto Daniel with exhausted awareness. He crouched without thinking, lowering himself to their level. The puppies reached him, pressing against his boots, trusting him without hesitation. Something settled inside Daniel then, heavy and unavoidable. Not fear. Not pity. Responsibility. It lodged deep, as firm as any order he had ever received, and he knew with absolute certainty that leaving was no longer an option. Daniel moved quickly but deliberately. He lifted the first puppy, then the second, then the third, tucking them beneath his jacket against his chest. They were lighter than he expected, fragile and trembling, their tiny hearts racing against his own. None resisted. They pressed into warmth, instinctively trusting it. The mother dog struggled to rise when he shifted toward her, her legs buckling beneath her weight. A low sound escaped her throat, more breath than cry. Daniel knelt beside her, snow soaking through his pants as he placed a gloved hand gently on her shoulder. She flinched, then leaned into the touch, eyes never leaving the puppies hidden beneath his coat. He had seen that look before in wounded teammates, holding on, waiting for someone else to take over. He exhaled slowly, grounding himself in what was real. Cold. Wait. Breath. Lives depending on the next decision. He assessed quickly. Distance to the truck. Wind direction. Exposure time. He adjusted the puppies higher, shielding their heads, then slid one arm carefully beneath the mother's chest, avoiding the injured side. She tensed, then relaxed as he applied steady pressure. Lifting her was harder than expected. Snow collapsed beneath his knees as he rose, muscles burning as he recalibrated his balance. Step by step, Daniel moved toward the road. He didn't rush. Rushing caused mistakes. Every few steps, the mother released a soft sound of pain. Daniel adjusted without stopping, murmuring low, steady reassurances that carried no promises, only presence. The forest seemed to close in, wind threading through branches like a warning, but he kept moving. The truck came into view half buried in snow. Daniel shielded the mother with his body as he opened the passenger door. Warm air spilled out, shocking against the cold. He placed the puppies on the seat first, watching until their shaking eased slightly. Then he returned for the mother, lifting her again and settling her carefully in the back, arranging her so she could breathe. As he climbed into the driver's seat, Daniel felt no relief, only urgency. Snow was already erasing his footprints, swallowing the road behind him. This was supposed to be leave. Pause. Instead, he had stepped back into responsibility without hesitation. He didn't question it. Some instincts didn't turn off. He drove toward town, eyes steady on the road, checking the mirror out of habit. The puppies lay bundled together, breathing shallow but visible. The mother watched him quietly from the back, eyes alert despite pain. Daniel didn't know how the night would end. He only knew this much: stopping had changed everything, and whatever came next he would see it through. That was who he was. That had always been who he was. The veterinary clinic glowed like a beacon against the storm as Daniel pulled in. He left the engine running and moved fast, lifting the puppies first and cradling them against his chest. The door opened before he reached it. Emily Carter stood there, already pulling on gloves, her expression calm and focused. She took in the scene without hesitation. "Bring her in," she said. Inside, warmth and antiseptic air replaced the cold. Emily guided Daniel toward the exam table, clearing space with efficient movements. He eased the mother dog down carefully, following her instructions without question. Emily's hands moved with practiced precision, checking breathing, gums, tracing fingers along the injured side. Her brow tightened slightly. "Snare wound," she said quietly. "Illegal trap. She's been fighting it for days." Daniel felt anger flare, sharp and controlled, then lock away. This wasn't the time. He stayed close, holding the puppies as Emily worked. They had stopped crying now, pressed together, exhausted but alive. A veterinary assistant moved in silently, responding to Emily's instructions. The room felt contained, purposeful, like an operation. Daniel recognized the rhythm immediately. When Emily asked for the puppies, Daniel handed them over, watching as she placed them into a warmed enclosure. They protested weakly, then settled as heat surrounded them. The mother let out a low breath of pain. Daniel's hands curled into fists at his sides, but he stayed where he was, offering presence rather than interference. He knew when to step in and when to stand back. "She needs surgery," Emily said after stabilizing the wound. "But she'll make it through the night." Daniel released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He sank into a chair as the team moved the mother toward the back. Fatigue settled into his shoulders, heavy and earned. He stared at the floor, at melting paw prints smudged across tile. This was supposed to be a pause from responsibility. Instead, he had walked straight into it again. But as he looked toward the enclosure where the puppies slept, their small bodies rising and falling together, he felt no regret. Only certainty. Rank didn't matter here. Uniform didn't matter. What mattered was staying when it counted. Outside, the storm began to ease, snow falling quieter now as if the worst had passed. Daniel remained where he was, steady and silent, waiting. Some battles didn't require weapons. Some victories came without noise. And sometimes, the most important missions were the ones no one ever ordered. Morning arrived pale and quiet, the storm retreating into low clouds that clung to the forest. The mother dog survived surgery. Emily delivered the news without ceremony, and Daniel absorbed it in silence. The puppies tumbled clumsily over one another nearby, stronger now, their cries replaced by restless energy. The mother watched them, breathing steady, eyes calm. Healing, Daniel knew, happened in inches, not leaps. In the days that followed, the illegal snares were found and removed with help from local authorities. The danger that had nearly ended everything was addressed without spectacle. Justice, Daniel learned, didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it simply prevented the next harm. Daniel stayed longer than planned. The cabin no longer felt empty. The dogs grew stronger with each day, venturing farther on unsteady legs while their mother tested her strength. Emily visited regularly, checking wounds, bringing supplies, speaking plainly without prying. Conversation between them came slowly, built on shared understanding rather than explanation. On Daniel's final morning of leave, the mountains stood clear beneath open sky. He packed his truck methodically, movements familiar and precise. The puppies clustered near the porch, ears too big for their heads, fearless now. The mother approached last, steady and sure. Daniel crouched and rested his forehead briefly against hers. It wasn't goodbye the way soldiers understood it. It was acknowledgement. As he drove away, the road opened ahead, purpose waiting. Messages from his unit would pull him back into a world of schedules and readiness. He would return without hesitation. But something had shifted. He carried more than training and discipline now. He carried the memory of choosing not to look away. Of stopping when no one else had. Of understanding that the world he protected wasn't abstract. It was small lives in the snow, quiet forests, and moments where one decision changed everything. Sometimes miracles didn't arrive with thunder or light. Sometimes they arrived as three fragile cries in a storm, and a man who chose to listen.